welcome to Free Thought Blog's Podish-Sortacast, where we sit around and just sort of talk about things which we're curious about currently. For today's episode, we were going to talk about just sort of bring a little bit of holiday cheer and all that to everybody. It's been a while since we've last recorded, of course, and I mean this is sort of the dark season where people tend to be at their lowest and all that. So probably a good idea to go around and spread a little bit more cheer and all that. And yes, I know our last episode was related to cheering people up too. It's our podcast. We can do what we want to. So, with me, we've got William Brinkman, Christian Wagner, and Great American Satan to talk about the things that they love and enjoy about the holiday season. All right. So, who should I pick on first? Brinkman, you've got the best props. Let's get you started with what you enjoy.
Sure. Well, my family's, I've grown up celebrating the holidays, even though my parents weren't particularly religious. And so this is a doll that my great-grandmother made, and it's been handed down over the years, and I grew up with it. And it's kind of embarrassed when my parent mother decided to mail it to me, but it's been a feature of my home in the holidays for the past couple of years, and still holding up quite well. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the 20s or turn of the century. So yeah, very good shape. Yeah, more recent. My wife grew up. My wife's Jewish and secular Jewish, and when we got married, I became involved in humanistic Judaism movement, and this was one of our first things we bought together. So we celebrate both Hanukkah and Christmas. So, and then we did the lighting every night. And actually this year I got to be pretty good at candle lighting. So that's a big achievement after several years. And let's see. We don't have a Christmas tree. I personally never cared for that. Just a big hassle. And then Sandra doesn't really feel comfortable with Christmas trees. Last year, my mother gave us a lighted wreath, and we tried it out. Then this year, my wife Sandra said, "No, we're not doing that again." And I figured, why not? So, yeah, I'd say overall, my family, holidays are more about getting together, getting gifts for the kids, and it's more about family, not religion, not celebrating the alleged birth of Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Family. I mean, I've had lots of memories of seeing my grandparents and either gathering at my grandfather's house in Missouri or or my other grandparents down in Oklahoma. And my grandfather at the time in Missouri had this really big house with like 2-story windows and big open meeting area, and it was like a great place to have Christmas. And he's like one of the few people who would put like silent movie cameras, and he would play, like film us all. So he predated the cell phone era. And then let's see, then we'd watch them like weeks later. And what I liked as a kid, what my cousin and I liked, is that sometimes he would reverse the tape so everyone would move backwards. And then one year, my cousin and I, for a joke, decided we're going to run around backwards during Christmas, and he filmed that. So kind of got ahead of the game. So yeah, that's my holiday joy.
Nice. I've had similar sort of holidays growing up. We traditionally would always go out to where the grandparents are on the prairies and all that. And this being the Canadian prairies, it's basically, ridiculously cold, tons of snow all about. And we would hang out with our cousins and all that and have big giant meals. And of course, there's the giant unwrapping of presents and all that. It was really a grand fun time for us as well, too. Let's see what Wagner has to say as well. What have you got to spread a little bit of
Well,
cheer at this time of year?
I'm one of those annoying people who don't actually celebrate Christmas any longer. I did as, of course, a kid. We always had that, but for me, the Christmas period is always traveling period because I have family in Australia, so I travel down there when it's summer down there, and obviously winter in Denmark. So for me, every Christmas is the time where I look around at the map and say, where can I go to that's warmer than Denmark? The thing is, Denmark is not snowy; it's just rainy and cold during December. So it's not really particularly kind of Christmassy in that sense. So for me, the joy of Christmas is actually traveling around, seeing other places, and also sometimes seeing kind of how the way they're celebrating Christmas. I was actually in Australia this year for the first time in 5 years because of COVID. My brother and I were supposed to go down and visit the family just before, just when the COVID started. So it's been postponed for a few years, and that was really nice seeing family again. But also, it's always fun when you grew up with celebrating Christmas during the cold to run around in hot weather and watching people celebrate Christmas in shorts.
Yeah,
So
bit of a contrast there. I'm reminded of Tim Minchin's White Wine in the Sun as a holiday thing.
Yeah.
And certainly appropriate for people who do not, have religious worship as well. So
yeah, it's a nice song, and it's actually quite. It has the right tone for at least, and yeah. When as a kid, we used to have all the Christmas stuff, Christmas tree and singing Christmas carols very badly. My family are not great singers, so that was the one time a year we would sing, and that was. We should probably have practiced some more, I think.
fair enough. I was lucky
So,
to avoid that. All right,
yeah.
Satan, I'm sure you've got some good holiday tales. If there's one person I would think who'd be active during the holidays, it would be Satan.
Yeah, well, my guys is the Krampus. No, I don't. So anyways, yeah, I was thinking about like I could talk about like some of the things that were kind of I don't know moments for me as a child, but I think what I had in mind for this subtopic was actually to talk about how I met my boyfriend, got together with him because that was around wintry time of year. It was New Year's. Um, but I could go on for quite a bit at length about that. So just like kind of checking in here.
Yeah, we got the time.
What do you think? What kind of time frame are we looking at for me to fill out with my bloviations?
Oh, let's give it a good 10 minutes or so.
Okay, the 10-minute version. All right. So, I first met my boyfriend in art school at the Art Institute of Seattle. We were in a comic strip club together, and we made like rather kind of crude comics that get Xeroxed and distributed to much mockery in the lunch or break rooms and such. Um, we it's the beginning of the story Ligeia by Edgar Allan Poe, as he's like talks about how he doesn't remember how he actually met her, and it's kind of like that. I don't remember how I met him exactly. It was very gradual that we came to be acquainted. Um, I remember one time when he came in from the rain, like with his cool raincoat, just drenched in water, and he had the black hair and the pale skin. He was looking like Dracula. I mentioned that to him. He thought it was funny. That was kind of one of the first actual memories I have of him, aside from just sort of vague notion of his presence. So we graduated, and the school is supposed to like the college is part of its pitch is like, oh, we'll help you get jobs in the art industry or video game industry or whatever, right? So they did a pretty half-assed job of that, but we both ended up working as just like fucking I was like seasonal tech support for a video game company. The year I graduated. So we were basically supposed to be on the phones available to give tech support to people on Christmas Day. And we both ended up in the same job at the same time. So my home was very far north of Seattle, and the job was actually in Redmond. My boyfriend was living in Seattle, which is easier to commute from than where I was living up in Everett. So what I did, he was staying with his mother for Christmas, and there was no way I could actually get to the job on time if I was coming from my home. So I borrowed the use of his apartment while he was staying with his mom. It's kind of weird. I like spent the night in a stranger's apartment because we didn't know each other that well, just moderately well. But on Christmas Eve, and then in the morning I like went down to the alley, got picked up, and we commuted over to Redmond together to do the job. So it was weird. It was a weird environment. The first time I ever had a job working in an office environment, and it was being temps. We were like pretty badly disrespected by the people that were working there. Um, and it was like not a great time itself. A lot of crunching through the snow because it snowed very heavily that year. And you know, drinking coffee. I don't like drinking coffee, but it was necessary to stay awake for that job. It was so I'd get enjoying some heartburn and stuff like that too. But we got reacquainted because this is like the first time we'd had been around each other more regularly than when we were in school. And we had some laughs and such, and we ended up making a date for New Year's Eve. And on that day, I was like, again, it was still pretty snowy out. He was in this old brick apartment building. This is before the rents and for everything in Seattle like quadrupled because of Amazon expansion. So he was successfully having a place where he could rent for like just, I don't know, it was like $500 or something like that, which is just impossible at this point in time. But so it was like kind of magical in that way. And there was also the courtyard of this brick building. There was somebody had a hummingbird feeder up high, so sometimes like the hummingbirds would like perch in one of this little tree down there in the courtyard, like the middle of the U district in Seattle. And it was cool to like see like a hummingbird out in the snow, just sitting in a tree catching like snowflakes on his head that were like the equivalent of catching like a human catching a dinner plate on the head. It was yeah, little magic moment for the winter. But yeah, we watched on our date. We like watched like action movies and anime and uh, just generally like had a lot of yucks, kind of sharing our interests. And that night we had our first kiss, and then I was like as I was then I went took the bus back home to Everett, and then like eventually I moved into the same apartment building in a different apartment in the coming year, and then like I ended up moving into his apartment like before the end of the year, and we'd like we just kind of like going out sort of informally, but exclusively. And it was like and since then it's been like, let's say, like 18 years, and yeah, we've been living together ever since. The year after that we got together, we got our first cats together, Momo and Mochi. I've been blogging on Atheism Plus and then on Free Thought blogs. I've memorialized both of them as they passed away. They didn't have full lives for cats due to health problems. But yeah, that was nice because it's like about the anniversary of when we started going out, and on our way home from that, Seattle doesn't snow every year, but on our way home from going to get them, it was snowing, starting to snow again. So a little bit of holiday magic. We had the new cats, very fun. I think that's
Nice.
the main things on that front. I have a little bit more stuff I could say too if we want to fill some time, but I'll cede the mic now for whoever else.
Yeah, we can cycle it around. Anyone else? I mean, Wagner, you talked a little bit about how you don't have to necessarily engage with, the dominant traditions and all that. And I mean, this Brinkman, you mentioned that too with the secular Judaism as well. Certainly with myself growing up, I was not pressured into attending church, for Christmas or any other time. It was never actually a holiday tradition. In fact, one moment that actually sort of stuck in my head is there was one year my mom actually just sort of floated, "Hey, it's Christmas. Let's actually, anyone want to attend Christmas Mass with me and all that." And my grandmother, again, this is a farmer who grew up on the prairies, in that sort of insular rural area and all that. She's like, nah, not interested. Not my sort of thing. So these traditions are very much what you make it. But I'll turn it over to Brinkman or Wagner to bring up your own examples of it.
Like I say, I have only been once. My family was atheist through and throughout. So my grandmother was from strict Christian family and ran away as a 16-year-old. Now she didn't run away; she moved away. It's the wrong way to say ran away. She moved away as a 16-year-old and never really looked back to religion. But we never went to family to church. But one year I actually spent Christmas with one of my childhood friends, and his family had a tradition of going to church, and so I went there, and I will say it was one of the most boring experiences I've ever had. But that's personally because I mean, there's no really interesting message there, is there? It's just a tradition, and everybody's there, so it was fine. It was fine, but no, I don't really. I think church. I think Christmas is what you make out of. As I said, I don't usually celebrate it, but one year when I was actually staying home in Denmark, I invited. I just wrote out on Facebook to all people that are in Denmark that hey, if I had nobody to spend that evening with, I would be fine. I could make some food, and there was actually a couple of people who were really happy about it because otherwise they were feeling they would be lonely that night. So that's also something worth considering if you don't really particularly care about it, but you just want to be nice to other people, you could just invite people. And I know a lot of people here who actually spend the evening with there's a like a homeless lonely people big banquet in Australia and Copenhagen where people sit eating together. So they spend the evening helping making food and serving and spending time with people there. And 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 unlike in many other places, there's no religious component of that part. It's a purely secular Polonish Christmas in Christiania, which is not a Christian, not a strict Christian place to put it mildly. So, but that's pretty much what I have to say about that.
Yeah, and my family's pretty much celebrated Christmas. We just never made it religious. I know some humanists are really big on human light, and I think that's fine. I might have celebrated it once, but I never saw the need for like a specific humanist holiday. So I mean, we were able to incorporate Christmas, and much to the chagrin of the so-called War of Christmas people. So yeah, I mean, and then our Koladosh, the humanist congregation I'm with, we celebrate Hanukkah because it's actually mostly secular. I mean, even the traditional story has nothing to do with God, and of course, I've learned recently that menorahs actually predate the Maccabees, so it's interesting. So, and then like we celebrate it as part of the cultural tradition, not doesn't involve divine beings. So that's my addition right now.
Yeah, no, I gotta confess that when this idea was originally sort of floated as a topic for that, I actually didn't kind of like it because yeah, as you heard before, I was talking quite glowingly about enjoying Christmas in the snow on the prairies and all that as a kid. But once I sort of hit my preteen years and all that, Christmas sort of dramatically changed for me. It became something a lot more depressing and sad and all that. As often many people sort of have on that. And so I spent basically a good decade or so, at least, in fact, probably more than that, just absolutely sort of loathing the holiday time itself. And that wasn't until, I finally, sat down and did a little bit of introspection and sort of figured, okay, well, why exactly do I not like Christmas? Why is this such, a painful time of year for me? And in the end, I sort of realized, well, the reason why it was is because all too often I was comparing myself to others. I would look around at the other people in my family and they would be, according to, the sort of the standards of society around here, more advanced than me in some ways. They'd settled in, they've had, just much more success in those sorts of regards. And I would always, Christmas time, since this is the time where the whole family would gather together, it would be my chance to sort of look around the table and go, I'm definitely, not the proper person here, the black sheep here. And I think, maybe 5 or 10 years or so, it sort of led to a revelation of like, well, okay, but why exactly is this considered the best, sort of iteration of it? Why are they considered to be, more successful or something than I am? And I sort of sat down and did a little bit of introspection on that and realized, well, it's just something, which has sort of been a stereotype which has sort of been pushed around by our society itself. And so I sort of switched from thinking about Christmas and sort of celebrating, everybody sort of coming together and all that, to more being like, okay, well, this is a holiday time of year. How exactly would I like it to be celebrated? Screw the whole, what everybody sort of expects of me kind of thing. How would I like to celebrate it? And it actually sort of changed the sort of traditions that I will do. Like growing up as a kid, one of the best things I love doing around the Christmas time was just playing video games. Oftentimes, we would get new video games under the tree, and with me and the cousins and family around, we would all just sort of slam some cartridges into consoles and all that, and just play a couple of multiplayer games. So especially for like last Christmas as well, I've started being like, okay, well, I'm just going to set up a video game system. Anybody who wants to play it can play it, but I'll also just play it for sheer nostalgia's sake. And so I actually spent a fair bit of time just playing video games and hanging out and doing that sort of thing, and I had a blast because of it. So even if, Christmas is sort of something which you're not sort of happy about and not some sort, some sort, it's tied to trauma or, something which doesn't make you as happy as well. There are ways to actually turn it around and make it something worth celebrating. Obviously there's a little bit of judo involved in there, but it can be done if you so desire. Right, I think Satan, you had a couple of additional things to bring up with your story as well too, did you not?
Um, yeah,
Not ne-
that's
not
funny you
necessarily
mentioned
on
video
that
games.
topic.
It's funny you mentioned video games. That was being that job that I had that year was specifically on Christmas Day because of people unwrapping video games to play them. So, like, for the kids doing that stuff, there's somebody who's having to suffer through an undignified temp job over it. Um, but yeah, always balancing the cosmos. Um, I was I've had kind of a weird relationship with Christmas as a holiday. I think it was pretty normal for children, especially poor children, but I don't know, maybe all children, to like really be anticipating the gifts because you don't get much during the year, but that's the time when you're going to get some new stuff. So that was like kind of the main thing. It's just the anticipation of, wow, what kind of new stuff will I have? And there was an excitement associated with that that eventually fell away as I like became less interested in like playing with toys or even playing role playing games as in the same way as I used to, where I was like eagerly anticipating new source books and stuff like that. And it got to be an adult, and I'm like, I'm not really satisfied with the whole like the role playing games that always require new stuff, new books, new books, new books to get you new content. I'm kind of like more interested in creating my own thing, doing homebrew and stuff like that. And it's just like the almost every kind of thing, material thing that I would have once desired, I no longer desire. So it's just like there's no anticipation or excitement for Christmas. I don't really actually want gifts. Um, and I think that that's actually true of a lot of adults is that they like, as a child, they are anticipating getting gifts. That was exciting. They get to be an adult. They're more interested in giving than receiving. And it changes the holiday a lot, especially when you don't have children around and you just got three adults in the household and they're all more interested in giving than receiving. So nobody's nobody's going to be as happy to get a gift as somebody would be to like give it to them. So it's kind of a funny balance how that turned out. Um, when it comes to the Christianity side of things, I have to say my experiences were they weren't dire, but they weren't great. I did have that experience of going to a Christian, a friend whose parents were Christians, like church, one mega church, one time for a Christmas singing and festival type of thing, and like my skin was like burning. um, I suppose that's appropriate to my handle here, but I like really find that when I'm in very religious or very Christian, overly Christian circumstances, I get very bothered by it. It feels like I'm in the zombie zone or something, where it's like everybody's just like whatever's happening feels creepy to me somehow. So I was I mean, admittedly most of the churches that I've been to with a friend were places where they had like more conservative beliefs that would be like pretty opposed to my entire existence, more or less. So even if that wasn't the subject of a sermon or whatever, I just like the fact that these people are able to get together. I know what they think, and they're like getting together to like feel proud of how they are. This is just like on some level maybe bothersome to me. I don't know, but yeah, like I haven't done that in years. Um, and yeah, it's just I put up a bunch of Christmas lights and orbs, colorful orbs, sparkling orbs, and feel all right. So yeah, I don't really have any complaints about the holidays now. I also have not been somebody that suffers from seasonal affective disorder, so I don't really have a problem on that level either. It's actually a pretty okay time for the time of year for me for the most part. Although lately I've been having insomnia, which is kind of weird. Z-Quil seems to be taking care of that, so not necessarily a problem.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, I know. I have struggled with depression as well throughout my life. I don't think it's seasonal, but I mean, I've never had that check, so who knows, And certainly, as implied earlier, I've actually gotten a lot better about that too. So not a huge deal on that regard. Yeah, I mean, we keep sort of dancing around a little bit around the religious thing, but I mean, the whole point of Christmas essentially is it's basically just a social construct. The way we just sort of celebrated Christmas was more or less started by Charles Dickens, in the 1800s. He was a very, keen advocate for fighting for improved working conditions and all that for both, young kids and in general as well. And sort of took a very humanistic spin of actually using his stories and words to sort of encourage that sort of thing in the public that he saw, which great on that. But it's also just sort of underscores how much of an invented thing this is. Seasonal holidays are fine. There's always been some sort of, harvest festival or winter festival and all that within human cultures, just because this is a good way to sort of act as a pick me up and all that. Or I don't want to say why exactly. Other cultures I don't know of actually did it, but you can celebrate the season for whatever reason you like and in whatever sort of manner you like. It's all invented, so you can actually just sort of come up with your own reasons and tailor them to what exactly you want. So, yeah, I am fully endorsed with that.
I can add that there's actually I just heard a audiobook by Bill Bryson where he's actually talking about the story behind Christmas and all the things we have in it. It's actually pretty good, and it also explains how Christmas nowadays is pretty much distilled just the Anglo-Saxon, as we probably say. Christmas is pretty much distilled by Charles Dickens. We still have some Viking traditions in Danish Christmas, but so.
We got any other sort of contributions that we'd like to sort of chip in at this point? And I mean, pretty much, this is just sort of like a general cheer kind of thing. So anything along on those sorts of lines and all that.
Hi. Well, speaking as someone who grew up in an entirely secular family, my experience has always been that we did celebrate Christmas. So for me, it's never felt like a religious time of year. And I'm from the UK, where I think there seems to be a lot less fundamentalism here than people have in the States. And being entirely secular and still celebrating Christmas just as a fun holiday with lots of presents and sparkly lights is entirely a thing. Oh, and we have Christmas crackers. I don't know if any of your countries have Christmas crackers. It seems to be more of a British thing. Does that mean anything to anyone?
It's pretty much a British thing, as far as I know. Australia has it, obviously, but that's from Britain.
Oh, right.
Amusingly, in the United States, we call it Christmas cookies, Danish cookies, Christmas, the popular brand. Oh.
I can explain British tradition of Christmas crackers if anyone is interested in knowing. I wish I'd kept one out now. They've literally just all been put up in the attic. This is why I'm late. I was having to wait until the Christmas decorations are put away because it would not have really helped the podcast to have all the noise of things being shoved up a ladder to the attic just behind me. But anyway, yes, everything's now put away for another year. But crackers are these sort of cylindrical objects, and the idea is that you put them out at the Christmas dinner table and everyone pairs up, grabs one end of a cracker, gets someone else to grab the other end and pulls, and it makes a sort of banging noise and releases a paper hat, a piece of paper with a traditionally terrible Christmas related joke on it, and possibly some kind of vaguely interesting fact to wow the other people at your table, and a small object which might be anything from cheap plastic to something actually possibly quite nice. So this is a thing in Christmas in Britain, and it's a normal part of Christmas. In fact, it's actually a good thing, I believe, for record-breaking attempts to try and get the largest number of people together for a record-breaking cracker pull. I was in one back in the 90s, but it's been superseded by greater numbers of people at least twice since then. So there you go. That's a thing we do. We have Christmas crackers. And yes,
interesting. I think Denmark is a New Year's thing, not a Christmas thing. So
well, New Year's is basically all the crackers left over for Christmas. So if you don't want to pack them up for next year, then you can use them up at New Year's. So yeah, so you see them as more of a New Year's thing.
Definitely, yes.
Anyway, yeah, I'm from a family. We've always done the whole thing with the tree. I remember very eclectic decorations when I was a child, as well as every variety of Christmas decoration piled on the tree. We also had large numbers of Valentine's hearts and Easter eggs. So I think my mother might have just liked getting different decorations. And we'd have lots of food, a turkey, puddings, whole morning spent opening presents, just, you know, all the kind of traditional stuff, really.
Ironically, sorry, and hello, this is Sarah, by the way. Forgot to introduce you. Latecomer. But yes, ironically, when you're talking about Christmas crackers, it clued in that whole shoot that my family has been doing that for decades at this point.
Cool.
For some reason, I thought my whole English to British translation thing had sort of been like, well, wait a minute, crackers is probably related to biscuits or some sort of trinket like that.
No, these are actual crackers. So you have them in Canada. Cool. Yeah. I don't know. I think they're not much of a thing in the States, but I don't know where else they're a thing.
Not really. Our idea of Christmas cookies is take a sugar cookie, put in the shape of either Santa or a tree, add a topping and then sprinkles, and that's it.
I think we have to make clear this is not a cookie or anything you eat in any sense. It's a paper thing that goes bang and contains stuff.
Yeah, sort of cardboard roll with fancy paper around it. But I wish I had one. It would be so much easier if I could demonstrate. But I would pull a cracker live on camera. I did not think of doing this. Oh well, next year I will have to keep one back for whatever podcast we have next time.
That's all right. I'm actually perfectly fine with that because I hate the things. For decades, I've been forced to live with the suckers. It turns out what drives me nuts isn't sort of, the whole prize and all that. Although there is sort of like an anti-traditionalist kind of, streak within me that's like, we've always done this. Why do we always do this kind of thing? But the thing that pissed me off was the noise. As a kid, I could not stand that. And so, don't tell my family this at all. For years, decades even, I have secretly sabotaged it. The secret to actually getting them to work is you actually have to pinch the end quite a bit to sort of get the proper friction on it for the pop to go. I've always just grabbed it, but never put any sort of pressure on that part. So they just, crush apart without any sort of popping on my side. Obviously, I can't control what everybody else does, but if you sort of brace yourself a little bit, knowing that it's coming, you can kind of be like, all right, something annoying is going to happen. Bang. Oh yeah. And the whole fortune thing has always been, yeah. I've always realized that was bullshit, and so the joy with which people sort of read it is kind of like, you were kind of promoting bullshit here, folks. I don't not really a
Well,
fan
that's
of it.
interesting. You have fortunes in yours.
Sometimes, yes. We do also have frequently jokes and all that too, which,
Yeah,
as you can
I've
imagine,
never seen that. The traditional thing here is terrible jokes, and sometimes you get interesting facts. And we had one set where we had charades, so I'm fascinated. I've never seen them with fortunes.
and speaking of trinkets, I just
Agnostic.
realized this actually came from one of those Christmas crackers. It was. I think I, of course, did my usual thing. My sort of things went flying off to the side and all that because if you don't provide any friction, it's not going to rip potentially around the middle and all that, so you don't get anything. So I got nothing. And I was kind of like, yay. But someone sort of handed me over this and was like, "Hey, this popped out of your cracker." And so this actually is part of the innards of a Christmas cracker. There, for those who have never experienced it, your little touch of tradition.
The very Christmassy Christmas key ring.
Oh,
I was
very
gonna
much.
say that sounds sound like something you can use. That doesn't sound traditional at all.
Well, yes, the cheap
Well,
plastic toy part is the traditional part.
yeah, and yeah, the more upmarket crackers do have useful types of things in them.
It's a good sort of reminder too that we've got different traditions as well too. Like I do actually have some British history on one side of my family, hence the whole Christmas cracker thing, which I hadn't realized. But we also have a little bit of Polish and Ukrainian on another side, which means that for years we've always served traditionally pierogies and cabbage rolls on the day itself. This every single Christmas I can think of, we've always done that. And I mean, unsurprisingly, I'm also not a fan of that either. But it's not as actively bad as the fireworks and all that because I can just pass the food on. And sometimes I do. I will confess, I have had a few programs that I've actually enjoyed. So it's not like this is a total no 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 kind of thing. It's just I just don't like them. That's all.
Fireworks, man.
Yeah.
I don't. This might not be great for the subject of the thing, but I just feel like I have to say it. Most years around 2 times a year in the United States, we get like people popping off M80s and stuff around our neighborhoods, right? Brinkman knows this. Like
Nice.
4th of July and New Year's, and people will like start popping those things off a few weeks ahead of time. Sometimes they get it up on the Indian reservation, come back to your suburban neighborhood where they're technically illegal, but they still crack them off for just for funsies, all like making it sound like you're in a war zone for a while. Anyways, most years we get that is a fair amount of that. This year we haven't gotten a whole lot. Weirdly, we've gotten more people letting off firearms in our neighborhood than fireworks. As like just somebody in this neighborhood is just like emptying a half clip of semi-auto ammunition into I don't know what. They did it like 3 days in a row, and then like never got caught. And then the fourth day we had a police helicopter around the neighborhood, and they said there were some shots fired, but I never saw anything or heard anything about what caused that.
Feels like a
Anyway,
sign of the times. You're getting firearms instead of fireworks.
yeah, it's the holidays, baby. But I do have one more positive thing that's holiday related that I could talk about if we got another like 5 minutes. I don't know,
Go ahead.
what are we looking at here?
Oh yeah, we got probably another 10 or
Definitely.
15. So hit us with it.
All
Because
right.
otherwise I'm going to
Okay.
babble about fireworks. So
Gifts. So my anniversary is like a week after Christmas, so usually sometimes the gifts for one or the other of those will suffer, especially because um I'm not always very conscientious about making sure I got stuff prepared ahead of time. But this year I got something really great for anniversary gift, which was on New Year's Eve, which I'll give a little backstory on. So my boyfriend, when he was a little tiny kid, before he learned to read, his mother was reading paperback horror books at that time, and he thought the covers were always very scary and compelling. So he used to occasionally steal one and hide it under his bed and then sneak looks at it because he knew that he wasn't supposed to be looking at this. So pictures of a doll on a fence with blood dripping out of it, or a scary skeleton or something like that, right? On the covers of these adult horror novels. So anyways, he grows up to be kind of a morbid and gothy kind of person, as one might expect. He just a few years ago, he found out what the title of one of those books was that he couldn't read. It was something called a book called The Kill by somebody named Alan Ryan, and it's he just discovered this on the internet. He remembered something about it. He Googled the type of books and stuff, and he scrolled through a bunch of pages of the results until he found one that he was like, "This is the one. This is that book that I looked at when I was a small child that influenced me to be a horrible goth." So I was like, cool. Then just recently there was a book that came out called Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix that had featured that painting. It was in the book, and there was a little bit of information about the history of the painting that was on the cover of that book. Because of that, I was able to look up the artist website, and I bought the original painting that was used for the cover of that book. It wasn't cheap. I had to flex a little bit to make it happen, but I got that as an anniversary gift for my boyfriend. The painting of the book that was at least partially responsible for him being the goth that he is today.
Oh. And of
That's
course,
a
he also
pretty-
went on to date Satan.
That's a pretty damn awesome gift. I mean, you said
That's
before
great
that
story.
people prefer to give gifts. I think I understand why you're happy to give that gift, but I also think your boyfriend must have been really happy to get that one. That's awesome.
Thanks.
It's-
Always got to brag on that one. I think I might be done bragging now that I've done it on a podcast.
Nah, this is always one to have handy in the back pocket, I would think. Yeah, gifts. I mean, I obviously have, because of my mixed feeling on this, I tend to be a little bit, circumspect about the gifts I want. I'm notorious for just always asking for gift certificates and all that. And that's because in the past, when I've said, hey, here's my, birthday list or gift list and all that, people wouldn't actually get exactly what's on it. They would sort of improv a little bit, and I would kind of be like, let's just go for gifts.
So annoying.
It is. And especially, since, by this time, this was the internet age and you could order anything online. So I was literally like, okay, here's my list. Here's the websites you can actually get all this stuff from. All you got to do is make a couple of clicks and all that. And then my family still was like, yeah, we don't understand computers well enough to get it.
Direct links next time.
Yeah, but just because that... Oh, go ahead.
My parents eventually got the hang of the internet, so I can do gift lists, and they can figure it out.
Nice. Yeah, it depends on the person in my family. But I mean, just because I have my hang-ups on it doesn't mean that the same things don't apply to others as well. And I've actually been proud that in recent years, I've actually gone out and put a lot of thought into what the gifts I get for other people as well, too. Actually looking over what their lists are and trying to get something which is, on the list, which will sort of satisfy them, even while sort of, satisfying myself in some ways. The reason I mention that is there is one niece in particular who requested something relating to Harry Potter, and I was just like hard no on that one. But there was something else on their list that I sort of looked at. I was like, okay, I can manage this, and so I progressed it, and when handed to them, they just fell in love with it immediately. So mission accomplished from your crazy old uncle.
Heads up for your niece. Has she, or sorry, was it a they, read the Nevermore books?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to query on that one.
Ooh, yeah, definitely. get them to check that out, because if you want a book series about a child who is whisked away from a callous and unloving family into a wondrous world of magic and amazing things happening, and discovers their own innate powers, and if you don't want one that's written by a TERF, then as far as I know, the author of Nevermore has not shown any turfy tendencies that I'm aware of. I haven't particularly checked this, but the stories are really good.
Yes. We'll definitely have to
So
take that
there
into
you go.
account.
Might be a good alternative to Harry Potter things.
I assume the author also is not like a neoliberal weirdo in the same way that Rowling is.
I honestly have not checked any of this out, but the books are really good, and I have not heard anything bad about the author, and I think it is worth at least looking into.
Yes. All right. I shall definitely take that under
Keeping it
recommendation.
positive. Keeping it positive.
Exactly. There's almost always, if there's something problematic, there's almost always some substitute you can do, which would satisfy the person in question. They're into truck nuts or something like that. Well, there's got to be some alternative you can get for their car, which would work, a lot better.
You do the same as you're complaining about your family doing.
Yes, but I'm trying to be thoughtful about it.
Fair enough. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it.
Yes, I always like.
Completely. Yeah, a little bit completely unrelated, but related to gifts. I just remember my mother actually told me this year that she grew up in a fairly poor family, and she, as a young kid, she had the problem with the whole idea of Santa Claus, because why would she give all these crappy gifts when she was behaving good with all the naughty kids from the rich family who got a lot of big gifts. And her siblings explained to him that was because Santa Claus, yes, he brought the gifts, but the parents have to pay for it. So that was how the kind of universe was put into place for her. So
Ooh, that's a thought. Has anyone got a how we stopped believing in Santa story? I can't actually remember ever believing in Father Christmas, but anyone else got a good story? I've got one for my husband.
I can say that my parents actually did a very took a choice of not teaching us Santa Claus, because they didn't want us to learn lies as a kids, which was pretty good.
Well, actually, I do have a story. I know at some point my parents told me the Easter Bunny wasn't real. And then I deduced that Santa wasn't real and asked them, and they confirmed it. And I was upsetting, but then I got over it. But yeah, by little lateral deduction.
There you go. Good lateral thinking. So the story here for my husband is that when he was 3, the whole Christmas thing was the way that his mother decided to get rid of what I think you call the pacifier, but we call it a dummy. So what she explained to him is, okay, you're 3 now. When you're 3 and Father Christmas brings your presents, he takes a dummy away. And my husband, then aged 3, thought it over, decided, okay, dummy goes, presents in return, fair trade, yeah, he'll go with that, all fine. Sometime later, he found the dummy in one of his mother's drawers and put 2 and 2 together, and that's how he stopped believing in Father Christmas.
Goodness. Yeah, I'm kind of a weird one in that it's always been a holiday. Well, not always, but when we were hanging out with the grandparents' place, one of them would always dress up as Santa Claus and come in and bring presents. So in theory, yeah, I should have had this hardcore belief in Santa as well. But for the life of me, I cannot remember any time where I stopped believing in Santa. So either I never believed in Santa, even though there was a physical Santa sitting in front of me doing the whole ho 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 gifts thing and all that, or what? I can't explain it.
I can actually see how that might have challenged your belief. I mean, there is a physical Santa in front of you who looked and sounded very much like your grandfather in a beard. I mean, I feel like even if you weren't consciously putting 2 and 2 together, on some level, this had to strain your credulity.
Yeah, but I'm still casting back to be like, okay, did I ever realize this is Grandpa in a suit? And it was, if I did, it was after I didn't sort of think of Santa as being real. So I don't know. I mean, certainly as a young kid, I definitely never put two and two together. I almost, if anything, I remember thinking, oh, they've hired somebody to sort of come in and do it. It wasn't until I was relatively old, child-wise, that I realized, oh no, this is just one of the grandparents coming in a suit and all that. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But obviously, it was not a big, traumatic event for me at all, because if it was, I would have remembered it, you know?
Hmm. I know
Weird.
it's a huge relief when my children figured out that Father Christmas wasn't real, because it's always this huge dilemma. Like, should I be the killjoy who just tells them from the start and destroys the magic of Christmas, or do I perpetuate the lie? There did not seem to be a good answer here. But they both, worked it out at a reasonably early age, and each separately worked it out and asked me, and that was it, and we were done with any Father Christmasing.
What's even more fascinating is my family has still kept up that tradition. Just this past Christmas, one of the nieces or nephews, came up to me. He's like, "Oh, we want to find out where Santa is. We want to find out where Santa is. Bring up the Santa tracker." And so I dutifully, did a quick, Google web search. And turns out Google themselves actually have this front page and all to show you where Santa is. Oh, he's currently over Britain right now. Oh, oh, he's gonna be coming here soon. He's gonna be coming here soon. I'm like, okay. Okay. I am not going to dissuade you from your belief in any way, shape, or form, but yeah, I mean, okay. And,
Yeah, kind of awkward for you.
yeah, and we have always had a tradition of, hey, you're getting presents from Santa. I mean, obviously, as an adult, I don't get Santa presents anymore. But, I mean, this is something we still carry on, so other family members are certainly keen into it. So, oh, I mean, I never had that, there is no Santa Claus moment, so.
I
Yeah,
feel like
funny.
Greta Christina had an article on this subject once, so she was like saying like you shouldn't teach kids that Santa's real or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like somebody in our movement like had a piece that was just going, kind of against like perpetuating that myth out of convenience or whatever. But like it's funny because it's like it's just like seen as such a harmless one, but it's subject to almost all the same things as just like realizing that God isn't real. Um you basically like I often say that like if atheism was completely expunged from the earth and everybody left was religious, that it would reemerge de novo with absolutely no influence like within a generation, because some people are just going to be naturally born like looking at the world as it is and being like, I don't see how this could be supernatural in nature, right? um uh yeah, I just like, like you kids, I mean, has anything in their life ever been anything like a guy flying around the world distributing presents? No. I mean, so it'd be pretty easy to go like, that's not really concordant with what my experience of day living just worked out for themselves. But yeah, it's again like I don't know if have any of the, oh yeah, a Brinkman for just a moment. You believed at least passively that Santa was real, and then you had your moment there. But like most of the rest of us, I like can't even remember believing it. I think that's kind of funny.
And I mean, I also bring that up to point out that yes, this is a sort of common thing in atheist skeptic circles: is don't believe in Santa Claus, don't push the Santa Claus myth. My family wasn't like that. These are, I am, I believe, second or third generation atheists, depending on who you are, but they still had this tradition, they still carried on, and I mean, it seemed to be working fine for them. And it's not like this is one that I'm like, oh, I don't think it. No, I'm fine with them doing it as well. This is not something which is a big beef for me. I think the arguments, against, using Santa Claus at Christmas are stronger than those for. But I'm also not that strong. I don't think the difference is that strong overall. Most of us had this belief and got over it, so it's worked out, I guess, in the end.
Yeah,
I think
which
we
I
are.
can certainly see the argument for not we're telling them that, hey, Santa's a character and let's play along with everyone else.
Oh yeah, and even if I was to sort of teach some mythical kids of mine, hey, uh, even if I was to do the hardcore, no, there's no Santa thing. It's not like I wouldn't discourage them, encourage them to discourage others from believing it. I would explain sort of why the whole myth persists. It's a way to sort of promote wonder and interest in the world, as misguided as it is. And by actually sort of dispelling that, you're removing someone else's, you're making the world a more banal, boring place for them. Not something you want to do.
This was, in fact, a talk I had with my son when he reached the point of asking the question, is Father Christmas real? And I explained to him that no, he's not. But, or in fact, what I said was there was once a real person who was very nice and gave presents to children, and so this inspired adults to go around giving more presents to each other, and then they made up lots of stories about him being in a flying sleigh with reindeer, and all of that part is made up. But then I said, okay, don't tell other children that it's made up, because they probably like believing in him.
Oh.
And when when my daughter reached the stage of deciding she didn't believe in him, then she started singing about throwing him out the window, which was rather odd.
Yeah, kids. Right, well, we are just about at time here, so we should probably wrap up with anything. I'm gonna go around the hangout and get some final thoughts from you. Even if it's just happy holidays, that's plenty good and all that. So I suppose let's start off with say Brinkman, I guess. Have you got any final words of parting for us right now?
Just that the holidays are not they're not the domain of the religious. They're for everyone, and you can adjust the traditions for non-religious people. And I know some people celebrate Humanist Light, and I don't. That's fine, but you don't have to. And quick plug: my new book, Fire in the Shadows, comes out March 7th, and pre-orders will start soon.
So there you go. That can be your present for people for next Christmas.
Yes, hopefully the next novel.
Yes, the reason for the season, commercialism. Right, let's go with Christian Yest. What have you got to lead us out with?
No, I mean, I think I'm pretty much on par with everybody else. Celebrate Christmas as much as you want to, but also don't feel that you have to. And take care of yourself. That's the most important part.
Oh, agreed.
And also thank you for everybody for sharing their stories, and especially you, Stacey. I really love your stories. That was so fun.
Nice. All right, let's go with Sarah next. So what have you got for us?
Well, it sounds like we've all, insofar as we celebrated anything at this time of year, we celebrate Christmas rather than any other faith, probably because we all happen to have grown up in Christian-based, Christian-predominating cultures where Christmas happens to be the holiday we celebrate. But of course, as far as I know, I think pretty much every group of people have found some way or some reason to have some kind of festival in the cold, dark months of the year, probably involving light and presents and food and general fun stuff. I mean, I might be making that too broad, but I know certainly it's a case in both Jewish and pagan traditions for entirely different reasons. And I think whether for you it's Christmas, whether it's something else, whether it's just I get a few days off work and I want to make a lovely meal and exchange some presents with people and put some fancy lights up, or whatever it is you like to do at that particular time of year, just something to keep out the dark and the cold and remember human connection.
All right, Satan, have you gotten anything for us?
Well, yeah. So a lot of people end up feeling depressed around the holidays for various reasons. Sometimes it's comparing themselves with family and what they're supposed to, what you should be doing in terms of, oh, I should be like married and have kids and blah blah blah, or be more, financially successful or whatever. It's like, you know, in a way, like being in this sort of late stage capitalism, like with like extremely well documented draining of wealth from the youngest generations. I just kind of, you should think about that as giving you permission to never be as prosperous as your parents or grandparents. It's just like, hey, you're free to be like the hobo. That's just the world that's been left to you, man. You know, and then like revel in as the color red is a color of Christmas. So you can, like, you know, do a communism if you feel like it, and like have a good time in whatever way works for you and whoever is in your life. Um, and and then as far as like if you don't have anybody in your life and you just got seasonal affective disorder, whatever the other reason for your darkness, you know, just get through it, and like no, almost no kind of dark situation is permanent. You'll have something on the other side. And then maybe get grim again, but then again, like I said, it works in cycles, just like we keep turning around the sun. So stick around for it.
Excellent.
Second that, I've been there.
It's such good sort of closing thoughts and all. There's no way I can compete, so I'll just leave it on this. Eggnog is awesome. Spend a little bit of time to find a good recipe, and you know, just drink that stuff like crazy over the Christmas holidays. You know, there are ways to actually make it without lactose if you're lactose intolerant, and a lot of people serve spike with alcohol. Totally fine. So yes, that would be my finale with that. And so, hey, thank you very much for hanging out with us over this little thing. Hope you got a little bit of cheer out of it, and we shall be seeing you around next time. Goodbye.